Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm Deborah Ann Standig, KI Rabbinic Intern, joined by Rabbi Starr and Rabbi Hamilton this morning. We are going to read from Parashat Yitro this Shabbat. Parashat Yitro is famous for the revelatory experience between God and the Israelites as they're at Mount Sinai. And it is the famous story that we recount on Shavuot and read this coming week in Shul. With quite drama and fanfare, God reveals God's self to the Israelites through thunder and lightning and noise. And the Torah even describes that the nation and the mountain itself are shaking in fear. And the word fear, or the themes of the kind of sensory images that are full of fear, are evocative. It's an interesting choice on God's part to choose to enter into covenantal relationship with this type of energy and eliciting this kind of emotional reaction from the people. There's a verse that struck me most that the rabbis are especially interested in reading in two ways. I'll just read it out loud. In verse 17 of chapter 19, the Torah says, Moshe led the people out of the camp toward God, and then they took their places at the foot of the mountain, the Tachtit Hahar. And rabbinic tradition reads this in two different ways. On the one hand, Moshe bringing them out is like a marriage moment. The mountain is there, and it's like a chuppah, and the bride and the groom are meeting, and it's a loving encounter. And at the same time, in that same verse, the rabbis also imagine the mountain above their heads, threatening their lives if they don't accept. So what's going on here with the literal read of fear? What do you think the rabbis are doing in adding a different dimension? And what role do you think fear plays in our relationships with God today?
It's a great question. Great question, Deborah. First of all, it's great to be back with you guys, learning Torah, teaching Torah on this Erev Shabbat. I mean, I'll just say for starters that God knows how fear cements and burns lessons that cement inside us, right? It's the strongest emotion we have when we're faced with risk and danger and threat. And God is, I think God is trying to convey, knowing how free we are and how free God made us, that this is really important to take and cement and internalize. The sense that the rabbis insert love and the chuppah into it, I think, is a beautiful way of trying to convey that that's also an incredibly important and powerful emotion that cements and stays and sticks for generations, and certainly the things that the people we love, the causes, the sense of belonging, all of the things that we love. So by bringing love into the strongest and most fierce feelings we can know, God's trying to eternalize this.
Another book that I think plays on this, and I think Rabbi Hamilton was bringing us there, is the the notion of the dialectic of, first of all, just a sidebar, fear. I mean, yira. I mean, it's not quite the same word as fear. Pachad, whatever. So it's worth thinking about the difference between awe and fear. But to me, they are dialectic in the sense that they're related to each other. I mean, hopefully each one reminds us of the other, and they're somehow linked in some kind of deeply organic, dynamic way. But the other thing is, I keep thinking about the book that in some ways is the most powerful on this, but also the most, in some ways, emotionally confusing because it combines these two things, which is the Song of Songs, as the rabbis understood it, right? The notion that says, well, what's a book of erotic love poetry doing in the Hebrew Bible? And the rabbinic answer was exactly really what we're talking about, which is, well, it's not eros, it's not earthly, material love between two of God's creatures. It's love between God and his creatures. So there is an intimacy, but without that erotic embodied part that we associate with human love. And of course, that was the whole polemic with the Greeks and polytheism and paganism that says, look, you know what, this is going to be the power of Hebrew spirituality, of Israelite spirituality, which is this very funky dialectic of these two most powerful feelings, the aspirational, the deep passion that one party can feel for another, but also the awe and fear, as you put it. And I think either one without the other is totally inadequate, I guess is what I'm trying to say in my long-winded way. So I think we live with that. You know, we live with the fact that we love God enough and we feel confident in God's love that we talk to God, we beseech God. That's not just negative emotion. It's not just fear. It's also love. But love without the fear would then lead to a sense of, well, God's really just like us.
I want to thank both of you for helping us kind of enter into this really momentous and awesome encounter, and wishing everyone here a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.